My husband and I walked into the store for our usual shopping. As we were heading toward the checkout, he stepped aside to answer a phone call. I paid and was about to head out when an elderly security officer approached me. "Is he your husband?" I nodded. He said softly, "Please come with me, dear. This concerns your husband. You need to see it for yourself." Can you imagine waking up one morning, thinking your life is just normal, only to have it ripped apart by the most chilling betrayal imaginable? What if the person sleeping next to you, the one you loved for 7 years, was actually a monster meticulously plotting your destruction? It's a gut-wrenching thought, isn't it? Well, that was my reality. It was a gray, rainy autumn morning, just like countless others. I remember feeling a little tired, the kind of tired that coffee usually fixes. I stretched, threw back the blanket, and headed to the kitchen. The smell of freshly brewed coffee was already in the air. My husband, Ben, was sitting at the table, his face glued to his phone, sipping from his favorite blue mug. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound cheerful as I poured myself a cup. "Morning," he grunted, not even looking up. That was a red flag, right there. We'd been together 7 years, 7 years I thought were happy. But lately, something had shifted. Ben had become distant. He was staying at work longer, and his phone? That thing had become his entire world, a forbidden territory I dared not breach. But I pushed those dark thoughts away, didn't I? He's probably just stressed, I told myself. His job is demanding. "We need to go to the store," I said, biting into my toast. "The fridge is practically empty, and we need to get something for the weekend." He just nodded, still absorbed in his screen. "Okay, we'll go after lunch. I just need to make a couple of calls." Always those calls, I thought. Always some errand. But I didn't argue. I rarely did. Maybe that was my biggest mistake, being too accommodating, too soft. The day dragged on. I did chores, tidied up the apartment. This place was my sanctuary. It was mine, inherited from my mother after she passed, a cozy 2-room apartment in a lovely neighborhood. Ben moved in with me, and we built a life here. My childhood memories were etched into these walls. I felt safe here. Around 3 o'clock, Ben emerged, dressed and ready to go. "So, shall we?" he asked, grabbing his car keys. I quickly grabbed my jacket and bag. The drive to the supermarket took about 15 minutes. Light music played, Ben tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, and I gazed out at the wet streets. My mind drifted back to how we met, a friend's office party. He was so charming, so attentive, genuinely interesting. We talked all night, and I honestly felt like I'd found the one. Ben was 5 years older, a sales manager. He traveled a lot, met clients, and he had a way with words. I fell for him, fast and hard. Those first years were blissful. We traveled, hosted friends, cooked together. Ben was thoughtful, brought me flowers for no reason, showered me with compliments. I felt loved, needed. But then, it began to change. Slowly at first, then more and more obviously. He became withdrawn, irritable. His phone was glued to him. Whenever I asked what was wrong, he'd brush it off, work problems, stress. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The supermarket was huge, brightly lit. I grabbed a cart and pulled out my shopping list. Ben walked beside me, occasionally tossing in chips or a soda. I methodically picked items, checking them off, enjoying the simple act of choosing fresh produce. We moved through the aisles. I picked vegetables, sorted cucumbers, these are too soft, these are just right. Ben was still distracted, constantly checking his phone, typing messages, the screen glowing in his hands. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Waiting for something?" "No, just a colleague promised to send some documents," he replied, slipping the phone into his pocket. I nodded, and we moved to the bread section. The smell of fresh dough was so comforting. I picked up a loaf and some cinnamon rolls. Ben loved them with his tea. I always tried to make him happy, cook his favorites. Maybe I tried too hard. Maybe he'd long taken it all for granted. Suddenly, Ben stopped. He frowned, staring intently at his phone. His face tensed. "I need to take this call," he said sharply. "It's important." "I'll step aside for a minute." "All right," I replied. "I'll head to the checkout then." He nodded and quickly walked towards the exit of the sales floor, phone to his ear. I watched him go, a strange feeling nagging at me. But I pushed it away. He's probably just tired. Work problems. I pushed the cart onward, heading for the meat and fish section. I found a good chicken, fresh salmon. Perfect for baking. By the time I reached the checkout, the line was short. I watched an elderly woman slowly rummage for coins, lost in thought about how much my life with Ben had changed. We hadn't truly talked in ages, hadn't laughed together, hadn't made plans. It felt like I was lonely even when he was right there. Soon, I was placing my groceries on the conveyor belt. Beep, beep, beep. The cashier scanned the items. I glanced towards the exit, but Ben was nowhere. "That'll be $320, the cashier said. I paid, gathered the bags, and headed for the exit. Still no Ben. This call must be really important. I stopped by a brochure stand, deciding to wait. 10 minutes. Usually his work calls weren't this long. Another minute passed, then another. My anxiety began to prickle. Where is he? Has something happened? I reached for my phone to call him, but then, an elderly man in a security uniform approached me. He was short, stout, maybe 60, with kind eyes and a weathered face. "His badge says Anthony," he said quietly. "You came here with a man, correct?" My heart skipped a beat. Something in his voice put me on edge. "Yes, with my husband." "What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling. Anthony hesitated, choosing his words carefully. He looked around, then back at me. Worry was etched on his face, a kind of compassion that scared me even more. He sighed deeply, meeting my eyes, and I saw pity there. "Come with me, dear," he said softly. "It's about your husband. You'd better see this yourself." A chill ran down my spine. My hands grew damp. "What happened? What do you want to show me? Is he all right?" "Come with me," Anthony urged, taking my elbow. "I'll explain everything." "Not here. Let's go to the staff area, we can talk in private." I was flustered. My first instinct was to run, find Ben, demand answers. But something in Anthony's demeanor, his genuine concern, made me trust him. "All right," I whispered. "I'll go with you." He led me through the sales floor to a nondescript gray door marked staff only. He unlocked it, and we stepped into a narrow, dimly lit corridor. The air was musty, a mix of chemicals and old paint. My pulse quickened. What was going on? What was he going to show me? A thousand terrifying thoughts raced through my mind. Could Ben be in trouble? Was he caught stealing? No, that's ridiculous. Not Ben. We entered a small room, the security office. Monitors displayed feeds from store cameras. Charts and schedules hung on the walls. It was functional, sparse. "Please have a seat," Anthony said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, clenching my trembling hands, my mouth dry. "What happened?" I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. "Please tell me. You're scaring me." Anthony closed the door and turned to the monitors. He paused, sighed. "You see, dear," he began quietly, "I've worked here 5 years. I've seen all kinds of things. And I've learned to read people. When you see thousands every day, you start noticing details others miss. I listened, chest tightening. I just wanted him to get to the point, but I also dreaded what he might say. When you and your husband came in, he continued, I noticed him. Something about his behavior just seemed off. Too tense, checking his phone, glancing around. I've been around long enough to know when someone's hiding something. My stomach lurched. I wanted to protest, to say he was wrong, that Ben was just tired. But the words stuck in my throat. When he stepped away from you, I followed him on the cameras, Anthony explained, his voice softening. Just out of curiosity, you understand? Something told me to watch. And I saw something that really concerned me. He met my eyes, and the ground seemed to shift beneath me. Blood rushed to my face, then drained away. The room blurred. With a woman, I whispered, barely audible. Which woman? What are you talking about? I'll show you, the guard said, turning to the monitors. Our cameras record audio in some areas, not everywhere, but in that corner where they were talking, one is installed. I listened to their conversation, and I knew I had to show it to you. I couldn't just stay silent. He pressed buttons, rewinding footage. I sat frozen, mind refusing to believe. This has to be a mistake. A misunderstanding. Ben couldn't betray me. He just couldn't. Here, look, Anthony said softly, pointing. I shifted my gaze to the screen. And froze. There was Ben, standing in a far corner, near plastic containers. And next to him, a woman I'd never seen. Elegant, about 40, expensive coat, flawless makeup. She looked confident, successful. Ben was standing very close to her, too close for a mere acquaintance. They were talking, leaning into each other. This was no chance encounter. My heart hammered. My hands were cold. My mouth went even drier. I'll turn the sound on now, Anthony said quietly. Get ready, daughter. What you're about to hear will be hard. He turned the volume. First, only the store's hum. Then, Ben's voice. I recognized it instantly. The voice I'd heard every day for 7 years. The voice that said, I love you, wish me good morning, promised to always be there. Everything is going according to plan, Ben said. No warmth. Cold, businesslike, calculating. I've already started preparing the documents, found the right lawyer who agreed to help for a certain amount. And when will it be ready? The woman asked, her voice low, confident, with a slight rasp. We don't have much time. The apartment has to be transferred to you by the end of the month or the whole plan will fall apart. My insides twisted. Apartment? My apartment, everything will be done on time, Ben replied. The lawyer has already started preparing fake documents about debts. We'll make it look like Amanda suddenly has large debts to several creditors. Shell companies, of course, but the papers will look completely legal. The woman nodded, a satisfied smirk on her face. Good job. And then, Ben continued, then we go to court to declare her incapacitated. Death, stress, inability to manage financial obligations. Plus, I'll find a couple of doctors I know who will confirm she has mental health issues. People will sign anything for money. And then they'll appoint you as her guardian, the woman concluded. You'll get full control over her property. The apartment will be yours, and we can sell it. We'll split the money in half, just as agreed. I listened, trapped in a nightmare. This can't be happening. This can't be Ben, the man I shared my bed with, cooked breakfast for, planned a future with. My husband. She suspects nothing? The woman asked, glancing around. Ben smirked. And that smirk, it was full of contempt. Amanda? She's too trusting and stupid to suspect anything. She believes every word I say. The perfect victim. Honestly, I've been preparing for this moment for 7 years. 7 years pretending to be a loving husband, putting up with her nagging, her endless pointless conversations. And now, finally, everything is coming to the climax. Tears streamed down my cheeks. 7 years. 7 years he pretended, my entire life, a lie. Everything I believed in, everything real, was a carefully planned deception. Are you sure the court will side with us? The woman asked. Stripping someone of their legal capacity isn't easy. I have connections, Ben replied. The judge handling the case has already received his share. He'll issue the right ruling. The main thing is the documents look convincing, and the lawyer specializes in these cases. He has a whole network of shell companies that supposedly issued loans. How much can we get for the apartment? The woman's voice betrayed outright greed. At least 12 million, Ben said. It's a good area, nicely renovated. 6 million each. Not a bad sum for 7 years of work. Don't you agree? The woman laughed. You've always been practical, Ben. That's what I value. Not like those sentimental fools who believe in love and fidelity. Love and fidelity, Ben snorted. Fairy tales for the naive. In real life, only money and connections matter. Everything else is empty chatter. I sat there, tears soaking my face. I didn't wipe them away. I just stared at the screen, listening to the man I trusted most calmly discuss a plan to destroy me. Not physically, no. He planned to destroy me, as a person. Strip me of everything, turn me into a helpless victim. When do we move into the active phase? The woman asked. Next week, Ben replied. The lawyer is preparing documents. A few more days, and we'll start filing fake lawsuits. Amanda will receive subpoenas. Of course, she'll be in shock. I'll play the caring husband, try to help her. I'll say I'll negotiate with creditors, pay off debts, but nothing will work. Debts will grow, interest will accrue. Then I'll suggest she sign a power of attorney for managing finances. Say it'll be easier for me to sort everything out. And if she refuses? The woman asked. She won't, Ben said confidently. She trusts me. Besides, I'll gradually start convincing her she has problems with her head. Say she's become forgetful, absent-minded. I'll start taking her to psychotherapists who will give the necessary diagnosis. In a couple of months, we'll have enough medical reports to file for her to be declared legally incapacitated. I closed my eyes. It was monstrous, unbelievable, like a bad movie script. But this was my reality. And what then? The woman asked. After we sell the apartment, divorce? Yes, Ben answered simply. I'll file for divorce, take my share of the money, and disappear. By then, she'll be officially incapacitated, so she won't be able to make claims. Some social services will be appointed as her guardian, and let them deal with her. Cruel, the woman stated, without a trace of sympathy. Life is cruel, Ben replied. The ones who survive are the smart and calculating ones. Amanda is too soft, too trusting. People like that are ideal victims. I realized that long ago. Even when we first met, I assessed the situation right away. Lonely, no parents, owns an apartment, ideal. I deliberately started courting her, saying pretty words, giving flowers. Women fall for those banalities so easily. I opened my eyes and looked at the screen. Ben. My Ben. In his usual jacket and jeans, the ones I'd washed and ironed. His face was calm, satisfied. He smiled at that woman. And there was nothing human in that smile. It was the smile of a predator. So, in a month, it will all be over? The woman asked. 2 months at most, Ben replied. Courts sometimes drag things out, but everything's under control. The judge, the lawyers, the doctors, they've all been paid. The system works flawlessly. The main thing is not to rush and do everything carefully. The woman nodded. Good. I'm waiting for results. And remember, no mistakes. If something goes wrong, we could both end up in a very unpleasant situation. Everything will be clean, Ben assured her. I've thought through every detail. Amanda won't even understand what happened until it's too late. They talked more about details, sums, deadlines. I listened, as if through cotton wool. The words reached me, but I couldn't process them anymore. Inside, I felt hollow. 7 years of my life, a lie. The man I loved, the man I shared everything with, was a cold-blooded monster. Anthony turned off the sound and looked at me. His face was full of compassion. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said quietly. I know how hard this is, but you had to know. I couldn't let this happen. I've seen too many stories like this. People lose everything because of scum like this. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. The tears still flowed, but I barely noticed. You have to act quickly, Anthony continued. You have evidence. This recording is logged in our system, timestamped and certified. It's official material. With this kind of proof, you'll be able to protect yourself, but you need to act now before they start carrying out their plan. I looked up at him, my eyes red, my face pale. What should I do? I whispered. I don't know what to do. Anthony crouched beside me, placing his warm hand on my shoulder. Right now, you're going to record this video on your phone, he said firmly. I'll help you. This will be your evidence. Then you'll go back into the store as if nothing happened. Don't show him you know anything. That's very important. He mustn't suspect a thing. But I can't, I whispered. I can't stand next to him and pretend everything is fine. I'm not an actress. You can, Anthony said, his voice unwavering. You're stronger than you think. And I'll help you. The most important thing is to stay calm. You'll go out to him and say, I was delayed because of some formality, a receipt check, anything. He won't suspect anything. And then, when you get home, or even right here, you'll call the police. I nodded. My hands still trembled, but something new sparked in my chest. Not just pain, but anger. How dare he do this to me? I loved him, trusted him, and all this time he'd been planning my destruction. Help me record it, I said, my voice gaining strength. Right now, Anthony nodded, taking my phone. His fingers, accustomed to technology, quickly found the settings. He pointed the camera at the monitor and turned the recording back on. I watched my phone screen reflect Ben and that woman, discussing their vile plan. Anthony recorded everything, video, sound, every detail. Done, he said, handing the phone back. Now you have evidence. Save it in several places. Email it to yourself, upload to the cloud. So even if something happens to your phone, it won't be lost. I nodded, shaking, and quickly sent the video to my email, then uploaded it. Now it's safe, what should I do next? I asked. Call the police right now, Anthony thought for a moment. The woman is still here too. They can detain both of them. The police will have the footage from our cameras and your recording. The evidence will be airtight. I took a deep breath. My heart pounded, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was determination. I would not let them destroy my life. I would not let that bastard take everything I had. Okay, I said firmly. I'll call the police right now. Anthony nodded approvingly. Well done, sweetheart. You're doing the right thing. And I'll be right here if you need help. I took out my phone. My fingers no longer trembled. I was focused. When the dispatcher answered, I explained the situation clearly, concisely. Attempted fraud, planning a crime, video evidence, the store's address, descriptions. The dispatcher promised officers would arrive in 10 minutes. They're on their way, I said, lowering the phone. Good, Anthony said. Now, we need to make sure your husband and that woman don't leave. I'll go into the store, keep an eye on them. If they try to leave, I'll delay them under some pretext. You stay here. Calm down. When the police arrive, we'll go out together. I nodded. Anthony patted my shoulder and left. I was alone. I sat down, closing my eyes. A storm of emotions raged inside. Pain, anger, resentment, disappointment. 7 years. 7 years of deception. But now was not the time for tears. Now was the time to act. I wiped my eyes, straightened my back. I was not a victim. I would not let them turn me into one. I had evidence. I had support. And I would fight. Those 10 minutes felt like an eternity. I watched the monitors, seeing different corners of the store. Somewhere there was the man I called my husband, the man who planned to destroy my life. I splashed cold water on my face. I had to look normal. Ben mustn't suspect. 5 minutes passed. Anthony was by the exit. Ben appeared on a feed, walking between aisles, clearly looking for me, a slight irritation on his face. The woman was at the magazine rack, scrolling on her phone. I clenched my fists. Asterisk how calm they were. How confident, asterisk they had no idea their plan was uncovered, that in minutes their lives would change forever. My phone rang. Ben. I flinched, then answered, trying to make my voice normal. Hello? Where are you? Ben's voice was annoyed. I've been looking for you for 10 minutes. Did you get lost? Sorry, I said, surprised at my own calm. The security guard held me up. Some problem with the receipt. We're sorting it out now. Receipt? Ben repeated. What kind of problem? Some system error, I lied. They say an item was scanned twice. They're checking it. I'll be free soon. All right, Ben grumbled. I'll wait for you at the exit. Just hurry. I've got things to do today. Things, probably a meeting with the lawyer preparing fake documents, or the doctor issuing a bogus diagnosis. All right, I'll be there soon, I said, and hung up. I put the phone down, watched the monitors. Ben was heading to the exit, hands in his pockets. An ordinary man, waiting for his wife. No one would ever guess who he truly was. A few more minutes. Then, sirens. The police. My heart raced. Everything would be decided now. Anthony entered. They're here. I'll bring them in. Are you ready? I nodded. Ready. He left, and a minute later, 2 officers entered. A middle-aged man, a young woman. Their faces were serious. Good afternoon, the senior officer said. Did you call the police? Report a fraud attempt? Yes, that's me, I said, my voice trembling despite myself. I have evidence. My husband, he plans to steal my apartment, create fake debts, declare me incompetent. The officers exchanged glances. Do you have proof? The female officer asked. Yes. I pulled out my phone. I have a video. He spoke with his accomplice right here in the store. The cameras recorded everything. They discussed the whole plan in detail. I showed them the video. They watched, listened. concern etched on their faces. When it ended, the senior officer nodded. This is serious. Planning fraud, document forgery, possibly corruption if they really bribed a judge. Where are your husband and that woman now? In the sales floor, Anthony replied. I'm watching them through the cameras. The man is waiting by the exit. The woman is in the magazine section. All right, the officer said. We'll detain them now to clarify the circumstances. You'll need to give a statement at the station, but first, let's handle things here. I nodded. Everything inside me tightened. Soon, I would see Ben. I would see his face when he realized everything was exposed. Part of me feared it, but another part, full of fury, wanted it. Wanted to see his confidence crumble, that brazen smile vanish. The officers left. I followed, Anthony by my side, quietly encouraging me. Everything will be fine, sweetheart. You're doing the right thing. We stepped into the sales floor. There was Ben. By the exit, looking at his phone. A normal posture, a normal expression. Just a man waiting for his wife. The officers walked towards him. My legs felt weak. Ben looked up, saw them, frowned. Then his gaze fell on me, and confusion flickered in his eyes. Ben Volkov? The senior officer asked. Yes, that's me, Ben replied wearily. What's this about? You need to come with us for questioning, the officer said. There is information about planned fraud. Ben's face changed. Confusion, then rising anxiety. He looked at me, disbelief and fear in his eyes. What are you talking about? He tried to sound outraged. What fraud? I don't understand. We'll explain everything at the station, the officer said firmly. For now, please come with us. Ben turned to me, his voice dropping to a pleading tone. What's happening? Can you explain this nonsense? I stared at him, a storm of emotions boiling inside. Pain, anger, disappointment. This was the man who shared my bed, spoke words of love for 7 years, now pretending ignorance. I know everything, Ben, I said quietly, but firmly. I know about your plan, the fake debts, how you wanted to declare me incompetent and take the apartment. Ben's face turned pale. Raw fear flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained composure. What are you talking about? He protested. Debts, incompetence. Amanda, are you crazy? I have a recording of your conversation, I said, my voice growing stronger. Where you discussed every detail with that woman. The store cameras recorded everything, including audio. Ben froze. The color drained from his face completely. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His eyes showed utter shock, the realization that everything had collapsed. His perfect plan had failed. This must be a misunderstanding, he muttered weakly. You've got it all wrong. I've understood perfectly, I cut him off. 7 years, Ben. 7 years you've been deceiving me, pretending to be a loving husband while secretly waiting for the moment you could take everything I have. Meanwhile, the female officer headed towards the magazine section where the elegant woman stood. I watched as the officer approached her. The woman looked up in surprise, began to protest indignantly. But the officer remained firm. Within a minute, they were both walking towards the exit. Ben watched, panic evident. Everything was falling apart, crumbling before dozens of curious shoppers. The woman looked at him, confusion turning to fury. What's happening? She whispered. Shut up, Ben hissed back. Don't say anything. But it was too late. The senior officer addressed them. We have a video recording of your conversation discussing a fraud scheme. You are both being detained for questioning. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. The elegant woman tried to protest. This is absurd. I don't understand what this is about. I was just shopping. In that case, you can explain everything at the station, the officer replied calmly. But we have a recording of your conversation with this man discussing a plan to take someone else's property. The woman turned to Ben, fury in her eyes. You idiot, she whispered. You said it would be clean. Shut up. Ben shouted, and the mask finally fell away. Before me stood a completely different person, angry, terrified, cornered. The police escorted them out. Shoppers stepped aside, watching. Someone was even recording on their phone. I followed, feeling a strange emptiness. I thought I'd feel relief, satisfaction. Instead, there was only exhaustion and endless sorrow. Police cars with flashing lights waited outside. Ben and the woman were placed in separate vehicles. Before getting in, Ben turned and looked at me. His eyes held a mixture of anger and something almost like pleading. Amanda, he called out. Wait, we can talk this through. It's not what you think. I stopped a few steps away. I looked into his eyes. Those eyes I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. No, Ben, I said quietly. This is exactly what I think. And even worse. You didn't just betray me. You stole 7 years of my life. You made me believe in something that never existed. I loved you, and you just used me. That's not true, he began, but the officer stopped him, gently but firmly guiding him into the car. I watched the police cars drive away. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Anthony was there. Well done, sweetheart, he said warmly. You did it. It wasn't easy, but you found the strength. Thank you, I whispered, tears welling up again. If it weren't for you, I would have never found out. He would have carried out his plan. I just did what I had to do, Anthony replied. You can't stand by when injustice is happening. Now, you need to be strong. There's still a lot ahead. Giving statements, court, divorce. But you can handle it. I believe in you. I nodded, wiping my tears. Yes, many difficulties lay ahead, but the worst was over. I knew the truth. Bitter as it was the truth. And with that truth, I could move forward. The young officer approached. You'll need to go to the station. Give a full statement, sign the report. We can provide a car for you. Thank you, I said. I turned to Anthony and unexpectedly hugged him. The old man was surprised but returned the embrace. Thank you for everything. You're welcome, sweetheart, he replied. If you ever need anything, I'm here. Come by and tell me how things are going. I'll definitely come, I promised. I walked to the police car, sat in the back. As it drove off, I looked out the window. Life went on. My life went on. And now, with the lies exposed, I could begin rebuilding it on an honest foundation, without deceit, without betrayal. At the police station, I spent hours giving my statement. I told them everything, handed over the video. Experts confirmed its authenticity. The investigator, a woman in her 40s, listened intently. We have sufficient grounds to open a criminal case, she said. Planning fraud on a large scale, possible document forgery, and if the judge bribe is confirmed, that's a separate corruption case. Your husband and his accomplice are in serious trouble. What will happen now? I asked. They will be held in custody until trial, most likely, she explained. Given the seriousness of the charges and risk of flight, you'll need to testify in court. I also recommend filing for divorce as soon as possible and securing your property. I will, I said. When I left the station, it was dark. A light drizzle fell. I looked at the illuminated shop windows. My life needed to be pieced back together. I called a taxi. Going home felt strange, a place that reminded me of Ben, of a life that was a lie. But it was my home, and no one would take it from me. The apartment was silent and dark when I arrived. I turned on the light. The sofa where we watched movies, the kitchen table where we had breakfast, photos of our supposedly happy life. Every object reminded me of an illusion. I went to the bedroom, sat on the bed, and closed my eyes. Exhaustion hit me, physical and emotional. I felt drained, empty. Yet, something new stirred inside. Relief. A strange, contradictory relief that the truth was finally revealed. No more guessing why Ben was cold, why he hid his phone. I knew. The next day, I found an experienced family lawyer, Carolina. Her office smelled of coffee and paper. "Tell me everything," she said. I recounted my story. "You did absolutely the right thing," Carolina said when I finished. "You have solid evidence. That's a very strong position. Now, we need to act quickly. First, file for divorce. Second, secure your property. Third, if they've created fake debts, we challenge them." "How can I know?" I asked. "We'll request an extract from the registry, check for encumbrances, and a report from the credit bureau," she explained. My head was spinning from the legal terms, but Carolina patiently explained everything. Days turned into weeks. I went to offices, met with notaries, talked to the police. In the evenings, I went through the motions, cooking, cleaning. My thoughts constantly returned to Ben. My friend Chloe came over, bottle of wine in hand. "Amanda, I can't believe it. Ben seemed so normal." "I didn't think so either," I replied quietly. 7 years, Chloe. 7 years he played a role, and I didn't notice anything. "Don't blame yourself," Chloe said, taking my hand. "It's not your fault. He's a professional con man. He knows how to deceive." "But I should have noticed something," I whispered. "Some signs." "It's always easy to see signs in hindsight," Chloe said. "You loved him. You trusted him. That's normal. And he took advantage of your trust. He's a monster, not you." We talked late into the night. Chloe told funny stories, and sometimes I actually laughed. It felt strange, like laughter was a foreign sound. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. Ben was in custody. The criminal investigation progressed. They found contracts with fake lending organizations, skillfully forged documents. The lawyer who prepared them was arrested, giving testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. "This isn't their first scam," the investigator told me. "Mia Miller has carried out similar schemes. She has a whole network of fake lenders, corrupt doctors, officials. Your husband met her through mutual acquaintances and got drawn into this." "So, he married me on purpose?" I asked. "He had planned it from the very beginning?" The investigator was silent, then said, "Judging by Mia's testimony, yes. They chose you as a target. A single woman with her own apartment in a good neighborhood. Ben needed to gain your trust, marry you, and wait for the right moment. 7 years is a long time, but for them, it was an investment. They planned to get an apartment worth over $10 million. I listened, feeling not pain, but anger. Cold, clear anger. My life was just a business project to them. An investment. 7 years of pretense for money. "But there's good news," the investigator continued. "We found the judge they supposedly bribed. He denies it, and it hasn't been proven. Maybe they were just bragging. But the planning of fraud and document forgery is ironclad. Both of them are facing real jail time." Months passed. I gradually returned to life. Back to work as an accountant. My colleagues were supportive. Numbers, reports, documents, they demanded concentration, leaving no room for self-pity. In the evenings, I started going through Ben's things. His clothes, books, everything had to be removed. Each item brought memories. This shirt, our anniversary. This book, we read it together. Each was tied to a story from our life, a life that was fake. The photographs were hardest. Us at the beach, in the mountains, at parties. Always smiling. Ben hugging me. In all those smiles, in all those hugs, there was no truth. Just a performance. I gathered them all, put them in a box on a far shelf. I couldn't throw them away, but I couldn't look at them anymore. For months after that day in the store, the divorce court session took place. Ben was brought from prison. I saw him for the first time since his arrest. He had changed. Thinner, gaunt, unshaven. His clothes were wrinkled, prison issue. Our eyes met. Ben tried a pathetic, forced smile. "Amanda," he called as we were led into the courtroom. "Can I talk to you?" Carolina, my lawyer, warned me with a touch, but I nodded. "All right, speak." Ben stepped closer, guards watching him warily. "Amanda, I know you hate me," he began quietly. "And you have every reason to. But I want you to know. Not everything was a lie. In the first years, I really did care about you. You're good. You were a good wife, but not good enough not to rob me," I said coldly. Ben lowered his eyes. "I got involved in this mess out of foolishness. Mia, she convinced me. Said it was easy money. Nothing bad would happen. I didn't think it would turn out like this." "You spent 7 years preparing to steal my apartment," I said, my voice firm. 7 years pretending, and now you want to say it was foolishness? No, Ben. It was your choice, and now you bear the responsibility. "I'm sorry," Ben said, tears in his voice. "Please forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but, no," I cut him off. "You don't deserve it, and I won't forgive. You stole 7 years of my life, made me believe in something that never existed, and the only thing I regret is not seeing through you sooner." A guard touched Ben's shoulder. "Please take your seat." Ben obeyed. I watched his back, feeling nothing. Emptiness. This man no longer stirred love or hatred in me, only fatigue and a desire for this story to be over. The court session was brief. Ben didn't contest the divorce, made no claims. His lawyer was passive. Half an hour later, the judge announced the decision: marriage dissolved. All property remained with me, as the apartment was mine before marriage, and the evidence of his fraudulent intentions excluded any claims he might have. "Thank you," I whispered to Carolina as we left. "You're welcome," she smiled. "You carried yourself with dignity." I stepped out of the courthouse, took a deep breath. Spring. The sun shone brightly. The first leaves were budding. The air smelled of renewal. I was free. Officially, legally free from the person who had deceived me for so long. The criminal trial against Ben and Mia Miller took place 6 months later. I attended as a witness. The evidence was irrefutable. Security footage, witness statements, forged documents. Ben was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Mia Miller received 7, as she was the organizer. When I left the courtroom after the verdict, the weight that had hung on my shoulders finally lifted. Justice had been served. That same evening, I went to the supermarket. I found Anthony at his usual post. "Child," he exclaimed, delighted to see me. "I'm so glad. How was the trial?" "It's over," I said, a genuine smile finally appearing on my face. "He got 6 years. Anthony hugged me fatherly. "Well done. I knew you could handle it." You're a strong woman. Thanks to you, I said. If it weren't for you. I just did what I had to do, he repeated. But the important thing is for you to keep moving forward, to live. You're still young, and your whole life is ahead of you. I nodded. I took out a box of chocolates and a bouquet. These are for you, a token of my gratitude. No gift could express what I feel. Thank you, child, Anthony said, tears glistening in his eyes. You must come by again. Tell me how life is going. I'll definitely come, I promised. Life gradually settled. I renovated my apartment, changed the wallpaper, bought new furniture. I wanted to erase all traces of the past, to create something new, my own. The apartment transformed, brighter, cozier. New paintings, new curtains. Everything was fresh, clean, free of memories. At work, I was promoted to chief accountant. The job took more of my time, and that was good. Less time for sad thoughts. My friend Chloe introduced me to her cousin, Thomas. A civil engineer, tall, calm, with kind eyes. We met for coffee. He was an engaging conversationalist, telling stories about construction sites, how buildings rise. I realized I hadn't had such simple, light-hearted conversations in a long time. We started dating, slowly. He didn't rush or pressure me. He understood I'd been through a lot, and he was patient. I was grateful. A year passed since that day in the supermarket, a year that had changed my entire life. I sat on my balcony, drinking tea, watching the sunset. The sky was pink. Below, the city buzzed. I thought about what had happened, how easily everything could be lost, how important it is to trust your intuition, to heed warning signs, and to remember that not all people are as they seem. But I also thought about the good people in the world. People like Anthony, who risked getting involved. People like Chloe, who supported me. People like Thomas, who patiently waited while I healed. My phone vibrated. A message from Thomas, how about a walk tomorrow? They're predicting good weather. I smiled, and happily typed a reply. I finished my tea, stood up, and stepped inside. My apartment. My fortress. My beginning. Ahead lay a whole life, a life I would build myself, on my own terms, with open eyes and a vigilant heart. I had walked through the fire of betrayal and emerged stronger. And looking back at that day in the supermarket, I understood it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of my true life. What about you? Have you ever had your trust shattered like that? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.